Hi, I am Kierra Fosterbaugh. I am an assistant principal at A. Philip Randolph Campus High School. We're a high school located in central Harlem in Manhattan, New York. I just have to say how grateful I am to Primary Stages. The experience that my students have is an unusual one. To kind of respond to your questions, I looked up the statistics around theater tickets. The average ticket for a drama is $116. It's $122 for a musical. So it's not accessible. And to have something like Primary Stagers give free theater shows of such superior qualities is extraordinary. In fact, my school, we're divided into three different academic academies. One of them is an academy called the Humanities. And in the Humanities Academy, is where we offer the tickets. We offer a class or sometimes two to go to the theater. And the experience is always really, really powerful for my students. The last show that we saw was Judy Gold's show, in which she really explores in this brilliant way her relationship with her mother and really looking at what mothering means to many different women from many different perspectives in the Jewish diaspora. And although it in some ways is specific to the Jewish community, because of the way she told the story, it's very universal. You know, you can't, we, that kind of experience, like that's a blessing, you know, to be offered that, to be offered that opportunity to understand yourself and to understand the world around you differently through something brilliant that you saw on the stage. We're grateful for that. Because I work in a school, and you know, young people just have this exuberance for life, and you just get these little random, you know, hi, Miss Fosterbaugh, and I'm even talking about with high school kids. So I really miss that. It's very, very hard for me, especially when we were all being very, very strict about social distancing. So I miss that. I still miss that. Sadly, I've even hugged a few trees because I got to get my hugs in. So that was hard for me, but it was really, really hard for a myriad of ways for my students. The expectations for them as students really didn't change very much in terms of being responsible for schoolwork. And so in some families, being online, there may have been four siblings trying to use one computer. The lack of having somebody help you monitor yourself is also a real challenge. I mean, human beings are so funny because a lot of times we know that something is impossible, and yet we will still expect it of someone in anyway. If I can be personal for a minute, when my son, I have a 36-year-old, but when my son was a baby, and I was a new mom, like let's say my son was only 2 weeks old, I actually thought in my mind when he was crying and trying to get my attention and doing the things that babies do, I actually thought in my mind, stop acting like a baby. So that's what I mean about how ridiculous we can be. Um, and in terms of our expectations of young people, because as educators, we know that the frontal lobe for most of us isn't fully developed. Somewhere around 25 is when it's fully developed. So it's we don't have the ability to deeply understand cause and effect, to consequences, and yet we um, continue to expect young people to understand these consequences. and they're just not, it's not possible. So they don't have a lot of intrinsic motivation yet. One reason why they can do well in school is because of the proximity, right? Teachers, we walk around the room, you make a lot of decisions. Oh, should I stand closer? You know what? Sean doesn't look like he's paying attention. Let me go and stand by him as I'm giving directions to the class or as I'm asking questions. Let me pose the next question to him. We have a lot of things to kind of reel you in so that your attention remains somewhat focused on gaining that new skill or practicing that skill or gaining new information. And so for that reason, unless, you know, the parents were actually, or somebody in the family, some older figure was able to kind of provide that, then things like really fell apart. It was really, really, really hard for students at my school. We found that a lot of students were not checking on, and then at the end, at the very end, when we're getting into the second week of June and, you know, whether somebody is going to pass or fail started to become a reality, then they wanted to try to do all those months of work all in one shot, which was very unrealistic. And it was challenging as a leader to get people to have sympathy and compassion and to really create ways of for our students to be successful, even though they hadn't been meeting that criteria all along. You know, people have very mixed feelings about that. Why, you know, that person's just skating by, they're just being lazy. I kind of believe laziness is a myth. I'm not naive enough to think that there's no one on the planet that is lazy, but I believe that most human beings naturally want to be successful. And when we're not doing the things that will lead us to being successful, there's always a reason. Sometimes the reason, you know, is unreasonable fear. And, you know, but whatever it is, there's a reason. And so, part of my job, I hope I'm not rambling too much. I'm trying to answer this question deeply. Part of my job is helping everybody, supporting the teachers so that they can do their best job, and also supporting the students and their families so that they can get the most out of the educational experience, as well as supporting my principal, because that's a tough job of being the person who has the ego view and sees everything and tries to take the policies that are coming from central and implement them in the school. So that's what was going on with us. Honestly, you know, I know if this was a movie, we would say learning, they miss learning. But actually, what they missed was each other. They missed seeing their friends. They missed the experience of being a student. Um, it made them nostalgic and to value certain things about, about school that maybe they never knew that they valued. Yes, on a certain level, because human beings are curious and like to learn. I would say that there was that too, that yes, they did miss, you know, learning and being able to debate. And, but I think they really miss seeing their friends and the connection and the fun of being with people and in its own way every day being different, even though, you know, in life there's a lot of repetition. what my teachers have done, and I wish I could say that I was the one who spearheaded it, but it's not true. They took the lead and they found all of these different online platforms that are really engaging. Um, well, I did find one called Quizlet, which makes, if you create a quiz, but then it makes it like a video game. But they did things like there's a platform called Loom that you can interact using emojis. So that makes it fun because it gives it this sense of text messaging. Um, uh, the the person who's the head of computers at my school, he found a platform called Padlet that allows you to create this electron, or I'm not sure what the word is. It's not electronic, but it is well, it's online, this online bulletin board, and then students can respond in real time and then have other students respond to what they wrote. So, I mean, so they basically did this incredible learning curve where they just learned about these platforms. And I have to give props to a lot of companies because a lot of companies they forewent profit and they made at least in New York City, I don't know what they did in other states, but Zoom was free, even for the DOE. I mean, they have a free version, but it cuts off after 40 minutes or so. But the paid version they made available to anyone with a New York City Department of Ed email. Loom is free. Padlets is free. All these different platforms. And that's what my teachers, because teachers are really inventive, many teachers are really trying to figure out how to do a good job under really challenging circumstances. Teachers are incredible and brilliant and, like you said, empathetic and able magicians in the way that they can make a way out of no way. You know, sadly, I wish I could say uh, we did a lot of preparation, but we really didn't, because minute by minute everything was changing. It was hard to have a plan. Um, and I won't, it's probably not fair to say that we didn't have any plan, but it's more like just as we were like, well, okay, maybe this might work, the DOE would have another change and yet another change and yet another change. For example, the date of when school was going to open changed and changed and changed and changed again. And so as a result, of attempting to plan at my school, kids have had 5, 6 program changes just in the not even 2 weeks that they've been in school. And technically, they really haven't been in school because in-person school just started this past Thursday on October 1st. So it has been very, very challenging. What I do like about it, because I think that there's always something wonderful, even in trying circumstances, what I do like about it is this opportunity for us to really get specific about what is really essential. What is really essential? It is really essential, and I don't want to wax too political, but it's really essential that we develop well-educated citizens. And by well-educated, I don't mean that they have a specific body of information, but that they have the skill of discernment. They are able to come to conclusions by themselves, by using logic and reasoning, that they are able to assimilate new facts. So this is what I used to believe. It turns out that there are some things I didn't know. I'm going to incorporate them, and I'm going to be able to adjust my thinking because I can get past my ego and um, this incredible desire to be right all the time. Because while it's wonderful to have emotions, I'm not, when it comes to thinking and being a citizen, I'm ruled by thought and by facts. So it's really important. We know that in our nation, we do have states that are using federal money to teach creationism, which is just scientifically not true. I'm not saying it's not true metaphorically, but it's scientifically not true. We also have states that have museums that show human beings living at the same time as dinosaurs. We know that that is not what happened, that that could not have happened. And it's great to think about these things. And there's probably some truth in the metaphor of it, but it is not fact, and we should not be teaching it as fact. So what I love about the pandemic is that because we know we can't cover everything in the curriculum, we have to pare it down to what is essential and making sure that people are able to reason, um, and as a result of reasoning, be well informed. And I also love that where we are in our nation at looking at some of the real challenges that have been with us since the inception of this nation, we have this powerful opportunity to do things differently and to really look unflinchingly, but with compassion at our past, who we have been, and not sweep it under the rug. I don't know if that's going to happen because there's a tremendous pushback against that. But even bringing that into the classroom is a really wonderful opportunity. And I don't know if that would have happened without COVID, because COVID gave people the time to actually think about these things rather than rushing from one responsibility to a next. They actually were home and able to really think about these things and think about, is this who I want to be as a nation? Okay, so what my students need is what all of us need. I think that the most confident people are the ones who end up being the most capable. In education, we talk about it in terms of something called growth mindset. One of the things that we try to get students to recognize is that nothing is nothing is finite. You are struggling in math. You really don't understand how to do these equations. It's not finite. It doesn't mean you can't do math. There's something wrong with you. You're not intelligent. It just means, hmm, you may need to build up some skills before you can tackle this. You may not understand some of the prerequisite things that would help you to be able to do these equations. So, and that's what growth mindset is, because in our nation, um, we give a lot of lip service to everyone is equal, but that's not really what we believe, and that's not what we act on. And how it shows up in the classroom is that we say, oh, everybody's smart, everyone can do high level work. But most of us have not experienced that. What we've experienced in life is, some people are really smart and we're impressed with them. And some people are smart, sort of smart, and that's where we put ourselves. We say we know that we're smart at some things. We know we're not smart at everything. So we'll put ourselves in that category of sort of smart. And then we think, you know what? God bless them. I don't know why, but some people just not smart. That's what we kind of think. That's not the reality. The reality is that all human beings, with very few exceptions, I'm not including people who have brain damage or are born and with their brains wired in a way that doesn't allow them to process information in the way that they would need to in order to be intelligent. But I think that all human beings are incredibly intelligent, and it's getting the person to understand that not being able to get something as fast as other people doesn't mean that they can't get it. It just means that they may need some other tools. That's number one. And then the other thing that I think that all people need is to accept their whole selves. You know, most of us have these aspects of ourselves that I call the shiny bits. We love to show people our shiny bits, the part of ourselves that we've really honed and that sort of meets society's expectations. You know, maybe we're, um, really funny, or maybe we're, very quick witted. You know, we have those, that part of myself I can show people. But we all have selfishness, places where we're deceptive, greed, downright cruelty. And so, like that shadow self, we're always fighting against, so that we're never a unified field. In order to be really successful and manifest the things that you say you want and be able to do them, I believe you need to be really confident. And that means being confident in your whole self. All of yourself gets to show up. You have a shadow side because that's the nature of life. This place where we all live, planet Earth, is contrast, right? You can't know hot if you've never known cold. You can't be a compassionate person if there haven't been times when, you know what, you've been cruel, right? And that cruelty can hopefully lead you to realizing, you know what, I could have done it differently. And then compassion can be born. You know, so many things. Um, Theater, especially because it's about, the human condition, right? Even when what we see on stage might be animals or flowers. You know, I'm thinking about the theater that's directed at very small children. One of my son's favorite plays when he was little was this play called The Rose That Refused to Bloom. And he referenced it many, like years later, he would still reference things that he saw in that play about, the rose that refused to bloom was this rose that didn't want to bloom because she just wanted to not evolve. She didn't want to become an adult. Um, so, look, theater makes us think about ourselves, about other people around us. It shows us different avenues that we can take. It expands our sense of what is really possible. Another show that we saw, I think it was called Downstairs, but the two characters in the play, they were they were both, what do you call that? Unreliable narrators. You know, we weren't really sure. We went back and forth between believing them and what we thought, what we were imagining, because they didn't give us a lot of backstory, what the backstory was. And that was something that students talked about because it fired up their imagination. Um, so without arts, we would not have evolved as a species, right? Because arts takes this idea, sometimes a very complicated idea, and um, presents it to people in ways that excites them and um, makes them wonder and want to incorporate that into their lives. So there, like I get a little tongue tied here because like there's so much. Um, I teach a dance based meditation practice called the Five Rhythms that was pioneered by a woman named Gabrielle Roth. And one of the things that she would always say is to turn suffering into art. So art is our opportunity to express, to elevate, and to heal. And that is really primary. Um, Now, us as modern people, we don't often think about art as um, a vehicle for healing, but it is. It is. I mean, um, I remember, I don't know if you know this show, How I Learned to Drive, and it deals with some very dark issues. And when I personally saw that show, um, it gave me a chance to revisit a dark chapter to see that I'm really not alone. Um, it gave me a deeper understanding of myself. And I think this happens for everyone, not all of us with the same play. Some people have that at a kind of cathartic experience at very lighthearted musicals. Um, yeah, art is so valuable. Really understand how important it is to support the arts. And I don't just mean by giving their personal money, but by supporting the arts through their voice, because this is something that our government definitely should be supporting. This is um, important to human beings. So please, please, please support the arts in every way that you can. I'll be here.